What's up, player? Dustin Klein here. And if you're new here, welcome. Today we're gonna go over a home bicycle security system, and I figured I would go over a few bicycle locking techniques for locking the bike in the city and on a ride. But first, recently a friend of mine was over, and he was admiring the bike shed that I'd built. And while he was admiring it, noticed my bicycle security system, or the fact that I had zero security in the system. And he said, fear not, for he had the connections to a home bicycle locking system, and today I am going to try out this home security system for the bicycles. It's really just like a set of locks and chain. It's not like, there's no alarms or electrical. So let's see how easy or difficult this is to set up. Shall we? Okay, so what are we working with here? We're working with a brand called Hiplok. Not sponsored, so I can say I'm not a fan of the name. Real talk, it's like cool lock. But the product, on the other hand, well, it more than makes up for the name. So their home system is a two-part scenario. The anchor and the homie. The crux of this whole system is the anchor. Maximum security, easy to install. This is some ingenious design. This guy you mount to anything from cement, masonry, wood. What else can you put it on? You can anchor it to a wall, the floor, anything, everything. So how this thing works, there's a rubber cap, you pull that off, then you use a 10mm to access this, which rotates the inner core. So when there's a chain through this core, it's impossible to get to the bottom of this thing to take it off, which is genius. This pops off after you drill your holes in the required substrate. You put this through there, screw it in, put the core back in, the aesthetic topper, and then you have yourself a slick, simple looking, very clever, very sturdy anchoring system. This thing is great. You could use a U-lock with it, or what they set me up with is this chain scenario called the homie. And the homie is 10mm chain lock, premium protection, high security rating, hardened chained for home use. You get a coded key, and it's like the crazy smart is a security key. What the fuck I'm talking about? Thread this bad mamma jamma through the bike, through the anchor, put it together, lock it up, and sleep safe and sound. It's so heavy. So let's see what this thing's like to mount up. I got a feeling it's gonna be pretty straightforward, which is such a relief.
So let me show you where I think this is going to work best. Inside the shed, we've got Ellie's, Eddie Merckx, and my DeCordy. These are our commuter bikes. Both of these bikes are in here, just not locked up at all. Maybe I should do, you guys want to see this bike? Maybe I should do a quick breakdown of this bike. Hey Ellie, tell me about your bike.
This is an Eddie Merckx that I got at a bike swap in Trexlertown, which is a velodrome outside of Philadelphia. I think I got it like in 2000. I think I might have rode this bike on a bike tour from Prague to Budapest for the CMWC, but I can't remember what year that was.
Dude, that's it.
This thing was so much easier to set up than I had ever imagined. Holy cow. Seriously, it's so easy to set this up. What a nice set of insurance to know that this bike is now that much harder to steal. I'm gonna do this one. Setting that anchor up was way easier than expected, and there's 3 tools that you're gonna need if you wanna set this up that'll make it even easier. The first is a 10mm Allen key. The second is a 6mm or 1/4-inch drill bit, depending on what kind of substrate you're working with, cement, wood. And then the last thing is a T30 bit, which is common for most bit sets. You probably have one if you have some extra bits lying around. And that's how you can set the anchor screws into the substrate and lock that mother jammer down. All right, yep. I am so astonished at how quick and easy that was to set up. That was probably less than a half an hour. 2 bikes locked in? Granted, it was in wood. If it was in masonry or cement, it would take a little bit longer because you gotta elbow grease that thing. But either way, wow. Good looking out, Hiplok. Now what that thing's got me thinking is, how do I lock everything down? Because the gate needs to have some kind of reinforcement on it. And then maybe that other bike, and then what about all the stuff in the Okay, my quick take on the anchor and the homie combo for a home security system. I think these are a brilliant combination. Easy to set up, easy to use. The style and the function is very thought out. The design is really good. The aesthetics is good. I think these work best for someone that has a bike shed, if you live in like a condo, or even if you rent a house. I'm not opposed to drilling a couple holes in something if it's gonna make my bikes that much safer. And odds are people aren't going to notice it because it's going to be in some back tucked away spot that, it's probably fine. And what's cool is you can take this thing off when you move. All right, next we're going to work on some simple bike locking techniques that I think are going to help you out when you're riding in the city or even out on like a big road ride. So, one thing I learned from my time as a bike messenger is how to lock up a bike. And of course, every city's got a different level of intensity. So this is my interpretation of the best way to navigate keeping your bike safe in an urban environment. The #1 staple is a U-lock. This is gonna do a multitude of things. It's durable, reliable, they're hard to break into. This is your #1 thing. And I tend to get the smallest one I can and cut all the extra crap off of it so it's as small and light as possible. And the other thing to do in addition to the U-lock is some form of additional lock to lock your front wheel. I've used several different scenarios over the years, Nog to auto lock, and Hiplok just sent me these crazy zip tie looking things, which I think are kind of great because they're light and small. And why 2 locks? Because most times people have a quick release front wheel. It's one more step that someone has to consider if they're going to try and steal your setup. And another note, there is no surefire anything to keep your bike safe. I know this is not something you want to hear, but it's just the facts. If someone really wants to steal your bike, they're gonna steal it. But the more annoying you can make it for them, the more likely they'll just move on down the line and find something that's an easier goal. So for most scenarios, just a U-lock is good. If you're going in somewhere, quick in, quick out, generally a U-lock is good. But if I have a quick release front wheel, I'm gonna throw something on that front wheel to help keep it that much more secure. Because a quick release front wheel is the easiest thing for anybody to steal. Adding a non-quick release to your front wheel is yet another layer of security. One U-lock scenario in the city. Another tip on the U-lock is they stow very well behind the belt or in your back pocket. As a general rule of thumb, the thing you're locking is the thing that's staying put, so never just the front wheel. Always lock the frame. Head tube, top tube, seat stay, anything frame. And this move, I think, is the best of both worlds. You're saving the back wheel and the frame, so you're getting as much as you can with just one lock. 2 lock scenarios in the city. The point of this second lock is essentially to keep the front wheel safe. The safest and most secure thing you can do is either a chain or another U-lock. I tend to prefer to use locks that are lighter and smaller because they're easier to move around. Part of that depends on what city you're in and your own personal comfort level. Generally, when we're out on a ride, we are not in peak bike theft areas. So that means we can get away with a hell of a lot less. So the safest, most convenient thing I've found are these Hiplok Z-locks. They're small, lightweight, and affordable. They'll lock your bike up in the middle of nowhere without having to carry a big old lock. The no-lock scenario. More often than not, you're out on a ride and then you realize, oh, I forgot to bring a lock. Never fear, there are a few simple techniques that we can do to mitigate such things. Kinda, sorta, maybe. The first is to use your helmet as a lock. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. Another technique is to shift your gearing into a very high or very low gear. If you remember to do this, it can work very well, especially if someone's trying to ride off with your bike. Well, I hope you found that informative and there was something in there that you liked. If there are any tricks or tips that you know that I forgot, go ahead and put them in the comments and we can spread that knowledge all around. Also, we've got to give a quick International Players Club Steel is Real shout out to the one and only Hell on Wheel Unicycle Club out of Fort Collins, Colorado. Seriously? What up, unicycles? Oh, the marketing department's gonna be so stoked. We've really been wanting to capitalize on the unicycle segment. Watch this and become enlightened. All right, dear friends, until next time. Oh God. How do I end this? What do I,